I want you to think about something for just a moment. Think about the last time you stood up from a chair and had to use your arms to push yourself up, or the last time you walked up a flight of stairs and had to grip the railing harder than you used to, or the last time your legs felt heavy and tired after walking a distance that used to feel completely effortless. Most people chalk those experiences up to getting older and leave it at that. They accept it as the natural order of things. But here is what I need you to understand right now, before we go any further, and that weakness you are feeling in your legs is not primarily caused by age. It is caused by what you are or are not putting on your plate. And the research on this is so clear, so consistent, and so actionable that once you hear it, you are going to be frustrated that nobody told you sooner. Because there are specific foods, 9 of them, that have been shown in peer-reviewed clinical research to directly rebuild leg muscle, restore lower body strength, and slow or even partially reverse the muscle loss that most people over 60 assume is just their new reality. And we're going to cover all 9 of them today, along with exactly why each one works at the biological level. Stay right here, because this one is going to change what you put on your plate starting tonight. Welcome, and if you are new here, this is Dr. Alex Morgan, Chuck's Aging Wellness Lab, the channel dedicated to giving you real science-backed information about how to feel stronger, move better, and age in a way that actually makes sense for your body. We do not do generic advice here. We go deep into the biology and come back with things you can actually use. If that sounds like what you need, hit subscribe right now and give this video a like. It takes 2 seconds and it genuinely helps this information reach more people who need it. All right, let's get into this, because there is a lot to cover and every piece of it matters. Before we get to the 9 foods, I need to give you some context about what is actually happening in your muscles after 60. Because without that foundation, the foods are just a list. With that foundation, they become a strategy. The process is called sarcopenia, and it is the age-related loss of skeletal muscle mass and strength that affects virtually every adult who does not actively fight against it. Research shows that without intervention, adults begin losing muscle mass at a rate of about 3 to 8% per decade starting in their 30s, and that rate accelerates significantly after 60. By the time most people reach their 70s, they may have lost 20 to 30% of the muscle mass they had in their peak years, and the legs tend to show the most dramatic losses because the large muscles of the lower body are particularly sensitive to the hormonal and metabolic changes that come with aging. But here is what the research also shows, and this is the part that changes everything. Sarcopenia is not simply a consequence of aging that you have to accept. It is a condition with identifiable causes that respond to identifiable interventions. And one of the most powerful and most underutilized interventions is nutrition, specifically getting the right nutrients to support muscle protein synthesis, the process by which your body builds new muscle tissue, and getting them in the right amounts and at the right times. Because after 60, the muscle building machinery in your body becomes less efficient. You need more protein, more specific micronutrients, and better nutritional timing than a younger person does to achieve the same muscle-preserving effect. Most people over 60 are not eating anywhere near enough of the right things to support their muscle health. And the leg weakness, the difficulty climbing stairs, the fatigue from walking, these are the physical consequences of that nutritional gap showing up in their daily life. So let us start with the first food, and this one is going to be familiar, but I guarantee you the reason it is on this list is more specific and more interesting than you expect. Salmon. Wild-caught salmon in particular. Now, most people know salmon is healthy. Most people have heard the omega-3 talking point, but very few people understand the specific mechanism by which the omega-3 fatty acids in salmon, EPA and DHA, directly support muscle health in older adults. Here's what the research shows. Omega-3 fatty acids do not just reduce inflammation in a general sense. They specifically sensitize muscle tissue to the anabolic signal of amino acids. What that means in plain language is this. When you eat protein, your muscles need to detect and respond to that protein in order to use it for muscle building. In older adults, this detection process becomes blunted. The muscles become what researchers call anabolic resistant. They do not respond as efficiently to protein intake. Omega-3 fatty acids, particularly EPA and DHA, have been shown in clinical trials to partially reverse this anabolic resistance. They essentially make your muscles more responsive to the protein you eat. A landmark study out of the University of Stirling in Scotland demonstrated that older adults who supplemented with omega-3s showed significantly greater muscle protein synthesis rates in response to amino acid infusion compared to controls. And wild-caught salmon is one of the richest dietary sources of these specific fatty acids on the planet. 2 to 3 servings per week is what the research consistently points to as the effective range. The second food is one that gets dramatically underestimated as a muscle-building food, and that is Greek yogurt. Full-fat, plain Greek yogurt specifically. Here is why it belongs on this list. Greek yogurt is a rich source of 2 types of protein, whey and casein, that work in a complementary and synergistic way for muscle health. Whey protein is fast digesting and creates a rapid spike in amino acid availability in the bloodstream, which triggers muscle protein synthesis acutely. Casein is slow digesting and creates a sustained release of amino acids over 4 to 7 hours, which prevents muscle protein breakdown during periods when you are not eating. Together, these two proteins provide both the acute anabolic stimulus and the sustained anti-catabolic protection that muscle maintenance requires. Greek yogurt also delivers a meaningful dose of calcium and vitamin D in many fortified versions, both of which play supporting roles in muscle function that we will return to in a moment. And critically, Greek yogurt contains leucine, the most important single amino acid for triggering muscle protein synthesis, in concentrations that are genuinely therapeutic for older adults. Research published in the Journal of the American Geriatric Society has consistently identified leucine as the key trigger for the muscle-building process, and older adults need more of it per meal than younger people to achieve the same anabolic response. A cup of Greek yogurt provides a meaningful contribution toward that threshold. The third food is one that I want to spend some extra time on because it is so often dismissed by people who have been told to avoid it for decades: eggs. Whole eggs, including the yolk. The rehabilitation of eggs in nutritional science over the past 15 years has been substantial and well documented. The yolk specifically contains something that is directly relevant to leg muscle health, a combination of leucine, healthy fats that support fat-soluble nutrient absorption, vitamin D, and a compound called phosphatidic acid that has been shown to stimulate a key muscle-building signaling pathway called mTOR. The mTOR pathway, mechanistic target of rapamycin, is essentially the master switch for muscle protein synthesis. When mTOR is activated, your muscles build. When it is not, they do not. Phosphatidic acid from egg yolks contributes to mTOR activation in a way that has been demonstrated in controlled exercise studies. One particular study found that subjects who consumed whole eggs after resistance exercise showed significantly greater mTOR activation than subjects who consumed egg whites alone, even when total protein content was equated. The yolk matters. Do not throw it away. The fourth food is something that has been studied with increasing intensity in sports nutrition and aging research over the past decade, and the results have been consistently impressive: tart cherry juice. This might seem like an unusual entry on a muscle-building list, and here is the nuance that makes it make sense. Building and maintaining leg muscle is not just about synthesis, it is also about recovery. Every time you use your muscles, whether in exercise or just in daily movement, you create small amounts of micro damage that need to be repaired. The repair process is what makes muscles stronger and larger over time. But in older adults, the inflammatory response to muscle use tends to be exaggerated and prolonged compared to younger people, which means recovery is slower, muscle soreness lasts longer, and the window in which the muscle is vulnerable to further breakdown is extended. Tart cherry juice is extraordinarily rich in anthocyanins and other polyphenolic compounds that have been shown to specifically reduce exercise-induced inflammation and accelerate muscle recovery. Multiple clinical trials, including studies published in the Scandinavian Journal of Medicine and Science in Sports, have found that older adults who consume tart cherry juice experience significantly less muscle soreness, faster strength recovery, and reduced markers of oxidative muscle damage following physical exertion. Drinking 8 ounces of tart cherry juice daily or consuming a concentrated tart cherry supplement gives your leg muscles the recovery environment they need to rebuild, rather than staying stuck in an inflammatory holding pattern. At Dr. Alex Morgan, Aging Wellness Lab, we always emphasize that muscle health is not just about building. It is about the full cycle of stimulus, recovery, and adaptation. Tart cherry juice supports the recovery phase of that cycle in a way that nothing else on this list quite matches. The fifth food is spinach, and the reason it is on this list goes well beyond its general reputation as a healthy vegetable. Spinach is one of the richest plant-based sources of dietary nitrates, which your body converts to nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a signaling molecule that dilates blood vessels. It causes them to relax and widen, improving blood flow to the muscles. And here is why that matters specifically for leg strength in older adults. One of the underappreciated factors in age-related muscle weakness is reduced blood flow to the lower extremities. As we age, the efficiency of circulation declines, partly due to arterial stiffening and reduced nitric oxide production. When your leg muscles do not receive adequate blood flow, they do not receive adequate oxygen or nutrients. They accumulate metabolic waste products more rapidly during activity, and they fatigue more quickly. Restoring nitric oxide production through dietary nitrates is one of the most direct ways to address this circulatory component of leg weakness. A study published in the Journal of Physiology found that dietary nitrate supplementation improved muscle efficiency during exercise in older adults, meaning their muscles were able to produce the same amount of force using less oxygen. That is a meaningful and measurable improvement in muscle function driven by a vegetable. 2 to 3 cups of raw spinach or 1 to 2 cups of cooked spinach per day puts you in the therapeutic range for nitrate intake based on the research literature. The sixth food is one that has an extraordinary body of research behind it, specifically in the context of aging and muscle health, and that is beef, particularly lean cuts of grass-fed beef. I know that red meat has had a complicated relationship with health messaging over the past several decades, but the evidence specifically around its role in muscle preservation in older adults is hard to ignore. Beef is one of the most complete and bioavailable protein sources available, meaning a higher percentage of the protein you consume from beef actually gets used by your body for muscle building compared to many plant proteins. But beyond protein, beef provides something that is critically underappreciated in discussions of leg strength: creatine. Beef is the primary dietary source of creatine, which is stored in your muscles and used as a rapid energy source for high-intensity muscle contractions. Creatine stores in muscle tissue decline with age, and this decline contributes directly to the reduction in explosive lower body strength. The ability to rise quickly from a chair, to catch yourself if you stumble, to climb stairs without fatigue. Multiple randomized controlled trials have demonstrated that creatine supplementation in older adults improves lower body strength, functional performance, and even muscle mass when combined with resistance activity. Getting creatine from whole food beef, rather than supplementation, provides it alongside the complete amino acid profile and the heme iron that supports oxygen delivery to working muscles. 3 to 4 ounces of lean beef 2 to 3 times per week is a reasonable and research-supported target. The seventh food is one that might surprise you in this context, and that is beets. Whole beets, beet juice, or beet powder, all three have been studied with impressive results in relation to muscle function and exercise performance in aging populations. Like spinach, beets are extraordinarily rich in dietary nitrates, but they also contain a unique compound called betaine, also called trimethylglycine, that has been shown in multiple studies to directly support muscle protein synthesis and reduce muscle breakdown. Betaine works partly by donating methyl groups in biochemical reactions that support the synthesis of creatine and the regulation of homocysteine, an amino acid that, when elevated, is associated with increased muscle loss and cardiovascular risk. A study published in the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition found that betaine supplementation over 6 weeks improved muscle endurance and body composition in resistance-trained subjects. While that study was not exclusively in older adults, the mechanism is relevant, and the compound is present in meaningful amounts in whole beets. Roasting beets, adding beet juice to smoothies, or incorporating beet powder into daily beverages are all practical ways to get this combination of nitrates and betaine consistently. The eighth food is one that specifically addresses a deficiency that research shows is extraordinarily common in adults over 60 and that directly undermines leg muscle function, and that food is fortified dairy milk or plant-based alternatives fortified with both calcium and vitamin D. Let me explain why vitamin D specifically belongs on this list. Vitamin D receptors are found in skeletal muscle tissue throughout the body, and these receptors play a direct role in regulating muscle fiber development, muscle contraction speed, and neuromuscular coordination. Vitamin D deficiency, which affects an estimated 40 to 50% of adults in the United States, with prevalence even higher in people over 60, is associated with measurable reductions in muscle strength, increased risk of falls, and slower gait speed. Clinical trials have shown that correcting vitamin D deficiency in older adults improves muscle strength and physical performance. And the legs are particularly affected because the large muscle groups of the lower body, the quadriceps, hamstrings, and glutes, are among the most metabolically active tissues in the body and have some of the highest concentrations of vitamin D receptors. Getting adequate vitamin D through fortified foods and sensible sun exposure, combined with the calcium that supports proper muscle contraction at the cellular level, is foundational to maintaining the leg strength that makes independent living possible. The ninth and final food on this list is one that has an unusual and fascinating connection to leg muscle that most people have never heard about, and that is kefir. Fermented kefir, whether dairy-based or non-dairy, is a probiotic-rich food that is relevant to leg strength through a pathway that runs through the gut. Here's the connection. Your gut microbiome, the community of trillions of microorganisms that live in your digestive tract, plays a direct role in regulating systemic inflammation, in the production of certain vitamins, and increasingly, in the regulation of muscle metabolism. Research published in the journal Cell Host and Microbe has demonstrated bidirectional communication between the gut microbiome and skeletal muscle, a connection researchers now call the gut-muscle axis. Older adults with healthier, more diverse gut microbiomes tend to have greater muscle mass and better physical function than those with dysbiotic, imbalanced gut communities. Kefir, which contains a broader range and higher concentration of probiotic strains than regular yogurt, helps maintain and restore the kind of microbial diversity that supports this gut-muscle communication. Additionally, kefir is rich in bioactive peptides, small protein fragments produced during fermentation, that have been shown to have anti-inflammatory and muscle protective effects. Including a cup of kefir daily in your routine is one of the quietest but most meaningful things you can do for your long-term leg strength. Now let me give you the practical framework for putting all 9 of these foods to work in a realistic, sustainable daily pattern. You do not need to eat all 9 every single day. What you need is consistent rotation across the week that ensures each of these foods appears regularly. A day might look like this: Greek yogurt with tart cherry juice and fresh berries in the morning, a spinach salad with hard-boiled eggs at lunch, and wild-caught salmon with roasted beets on the side at dinner with a glass of fortified milk. On other days, lean beef replaces the salmon, kefir replaces the Greek yogurt, and the beets give way to a spinach and olive oil side. The variety keeps the nutritional coverage broad and the approach sustainable. Within 2 to 4 weeks of consistent adherence to this kind of eating pattern, combined with even modest amounts of daily walking or light resistance activity, research predicts measurable improvements in how your legs feel, how they perform on stairs, and how quickly you fatigue during daily activity. There's one thing I want to add that sits beneath all 9 of these foods and amplifies everything: protein timing. After 60, your muscles have a reduced window of sensitivity to protein intake following physical activity. The research suggests that consuming a protein-rich meal or snack within an hour to 2 hours of any physical exertion, even a walk, significantly improves the anabolic response compared to consuming the same protein hours later. So when you go for a morning walk and come home, reaching for the Greek yogurt, the eggs, or the kefir within that window is not just a good habit. It is a biologically strategic move that meaningfully improves the outcome of your daily movement. This is the kind of depth that we bring to every topic at Dr. Alex Morgan, Aging Wellness Lab. Not surface level lists, but the real biology behind why these things work, how they work together, and how you can implement them in a way that actually produces results in your real daily life. Because you deserve more than a list. You deserve to understand your own body well enough to make confident, informed choices about how to take care of it. Before I let you go, I want to ask you something directly. Tell me in the comments below, which of these 9 foods are you already eating regularly, and which ones are you missing? Or maybe you have already made some dietary changes and started to notice a difference in your leg strength or your energy levels. I want to hear about that too. Your experience in the comments helps other people in this community feel less alone in what they are going through, and it genuinely helps me understand where to focus in upcoming videos. And if you have a parent, a sibling, a friend, or a neighbor over 60 who has been struggling with weak legs, fatigue when walking, or difficulty with stairs, please share this video with them today. Not because it is interesting content, because it contains information that could meaningfully change the quality of their daily life. That is always the goal here. Subscribe if you have not already. Take these 9 foods seriously, and I will see you in the next one.